The long-awaited final review for Baldur's Gate 3. I've done a few kind of updates along the way as I played through my first official playthrough, which was done entirely in a live stream with my Circle of the Moon Druid. I'm very happy with the overall experience. There are obviously some things that really stood out to me in terms of like boss fights and music moments, and I've got more videos coming out talking about those individual things, but this is like my final review. Like, this is the full experience. I've beat the game. I did everything I wanted to do with the Circle of the Moon Druid. I did not try to do a completionist version. I ended up with 116 hours. The reason I did not choose to do a completionist route is because I am doing multiple playthroughs, so I didn't feel like I needed to see everything on the first time. I've got a sorcerer playthrough that has a completely different party of characters. I've got a Ranger Beastmaster playthrough planned. I got a bard that I've done with multiplayer. I've got a rogue that I'll do eventually. So I'll be seeing lots of different things over the years as I play through this game, and it will be years. This is not a game that's going away anytime soon for me. But I do want to talk about sort of my overall experience, and this is going to be slightly different than my final thoughts video, which I'll do later. This is the actual review video, which is going to be talking about sort of the pros and cons and some other stuff. So, without further ado, we're going to get into this. Now, before we get going, spoiler alert, because I will be talking spoiler territory here. If you haven't played the game yet, I highly urge you to do so. It's an amazing game. If you've played but you haven't gotten all the way through Act 3, there's going to be some spoiler components. Just understand that things will be spoiled. I'm not going to be doing a spoiler-free review, so you've been warned. This is your only warning that you're going to get. Before we go any further, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update as I continue to play more Baldur's Gate 3, and of course all the other games that we're doing here on the channel, and all the things we do beyond that, like the podcast around Middle-earth and Dune, the movie reviews, TV show reviews, and etc. Don't forget to check out the Discord, links are down below, and if you are a member of the Adventurers Guild, check out the member videos. We do those 2 or 3 times a week. Alright, so when I initially heard that someone was doing Baldur's Gate 3, I had never played a game by Larian Studios. So when that announcement happened, I went, okay, who is this company? I went out, found out a little bit about their history, and I went and picked up a combo deal on, I think, GOG, and got Divinity Original Sin 1 and Divinity Original Sin 2, and I promptly played those games during the early days of early access. First of all, I played, what was it? I don't even remember how many hours I did in the first game, but the second game was a lot bigger. And I was immediately struck by the fact that they had done a very good job with the CRPG component. And that kind of made me go, okay, you've got my interest now. And I was still a little bit nervous. And then when early access dropped and I finally was able to play the initial, I think I did the rogue the very first time through. Like, oh, I can't remember if it was a human or a wood elf. I'd have to go back and look at the channel. That was back when I only had like 80 followers. But when I initially played the early access, I went, oh, wow, this company has done a very good job. But even that did not prepare me for the totality of what Baldur's Gate 3 is in its full form. And I think that in terms of what I expected, I got way more than what I expected. I said this publicly a couple months back that Baldur's Gate 3, for the first time, this is the first game that actually took my favorite CRPG spot away, which was for a long time Baldur's Gate 2. That is like was and has been for many, many years, was the crowning achievement as far as CRPGs went for me. I played that game through more times than I played any other game through, and I absolutely loved it. Baldur's Gate 3 came along and took that position away and said, no, I'm the best CRPG you ever played. And I'm happy with that. It was a very great experience. And looking ahead at what I still have in terms of additional playthroughs in the future of my channel, my personal life, where I'm going to be going with this game, and where this fits into my gaming history, I'm okay with all of that. It was a combination of perfect elements. I think that doing 3 years in early access is something that not a lot of companies do it this way. We're not talking indie crowdfunded games here. We're talking, actual studios who are funded. Um, it was very interesting to see them do that because it allowed them to do a lot of polish to the first acts of the game. And this is where I like to think that the iterations they did during that process allowed them to focus and hone in on what the things that were their strengths and really do a good job of putting together a whole package. Now, it's not flawless, but despite the fact that it's not flawless, I still consider this to be the greatest CRPG I've ever played, and it is easily a 10 out of 10 for me, more like a 20 out of 10. And Game of the Year, probably Game of the Decade for me. We'll see what comes out of the rest of the 2020s. But it's an overwhelmingly amazing experience, despite the fact that it has a few quirks as of this recording, which is October 21st, 2023. Story-wise, I had a great time. I love the companions. One of the strengths of the Baldur's Gate series has always been the companions and the writing behind those companions, the voice acting behind those companions, the romancing of those companions, and they took it up a notch with this game. I took for my first playthrough Lae'zel, Shadowheart, and Gale. I romanced Shadowheart, and I think as much fun as I had with the Shadowheart storyline and having her as my romance character, when I got to the end of the game the other day, and it's been 2 days ago now, I think. Lae'zel's ending when she gets on the dragon and rides off to rescue her people. I was crying on stream. I was yelling. I was emotional, goosebumps, like adrenaline. It was an absolutely amazing experience, and it was, for a companion that I didn't romance, it was just I was totally blown away by her arc and how good it was. And her voice actor and motion capture actor, if you're not following her on, you should be following all of them on social media. But the funniest thing I've seen is her on vacation at a resort, in character as Lae'zel, bitching about the kids running around and ruining her relaxation. It's been hilarious. My second playthrough, which is my sorcerer, I'm taking Karlach and Will, and I will eventually be picking up Jaheira and having her be the permanent fourth once I get to that point. But just the companion storylines, they did justice to the franchise here with how good those characters were written. The overall story was very good. I have one slight nitpick, and that was the fact that even though, you're given so many options in this game, they've touted the 17,000, iterations of different things. I still am kind of miffed by why at the end of the storyline you are forced into, basically, you or someone has to become an Illithid to take care of to go up against the Elder Brain. Like, that's it. You don't have a choice. It's either you or someone else. And I felt very I felt like that was the only moment in the entirety of the storytelling of the game where I kind of scratched my head and went, really? Why does it have to be focused into only this option? I mean, giving us 10 or 12 options would have been better. It's the only point of the game where I felt like the story kind of wobbled a little bit, and it was being forced into, you must become a mind flayer. Someone, anyway. Someone has to become a mind flayer to control the stones to take care of the Elder Brain. Like, that's it. The end of story. You don't get a choice in that. And I felt like that was a little too railroaded. That was one moment out of, hundreds of hours of entertainment I've had between early access and all the other things I've done with other characters, where I kind of scratched my head and went, but it's not enough to take away from it being a 10 out of 10 experience, best game of the year for me, game of the decade. It's not enough to take away, but it is one of the quirks for me. I went through this game and streamed playing on the ultra settings of the game. I have an older laptop with a 1080 in it, 32 gigs of RAM, It's a good laptop like 7 years ago. It was a phenomenal laptop 7 years ago, but it's dated these days. Um, the performance was exceptional during Act 1, great during Act 2. Started to see some frame drops a little bit in Act 3. They patched things over time, it got better. But the last two sessions that I played, which is essentially the last big, and yes, there's tons of stuff going on. But I definitely noticed some performance issues during the last couple of sessions. But I know that that's mostly related to my hardware, so I don't want to take away. I don't want people to walk away and say that Act 3 is a buggy hot mess. It's not, but there definitely were performance issues, not just for me, but for other people, even on the PS5. Now, I'm eagerly awaiting the Xbox Series X version to drop because I will be switching over. As soon as it drops in the Xbox, I will happily buy it, pay another, 40, 50 bucks, whatever it's going to be, um, to get it on the Xbox, and I'm going to go through. I'll move my Sorcerer playthrough over there with a cross save and play it through on the Xbox, just because I have a Series X and it's much better performance. But I was very surprised by how good the performance was, even for my machine being as old as it was. But I did notice some stuff at the end. There were definitely some quirks in Act 3 in terms of some animation sequences, cutscenes airing out of order. Couple of bugs that I found workarounds for. There's a particular quest for a murder that you have to solve, and there was I think a key that was supposed to drop off a body that never dropped for me. And so there were some little things that I noticed that as I went through, but again, not enough to detract from this being an absolutely amazing experience. I'm going to be doing a later video on the things I didn't like about the game, because there were a handful of things where I kind of went, okay. But overall, absolutely phenomenal experience. Great storytelling, great overall enjoyment. I played on Explorer mode the whole way through and still felt sufficiently challenged because I wasn't trying to use any gimmicks or anything with the fights. I was just doing them the way they were intended to be played. And I still died constantly on some of the big bad boss fights. If you watched the streams, I did that entire Druid playthrough as live stream. So if you want to go check out the playlist, you can. There was 47 episodes to that character. So the boss, all the fights felt very good. There were some moments when I was just kind of blown away by how many options you had for combat, and that was something where I think Larian took it up a notch with not just the verticality of the levels, but also the environment. And lots of games do environments, lots of games do verticality, Celasta as an example, but not quite to this level. And I love the fact that every time you go into an encounter, you have dozens, if not several dozens of ways to complete an encounter. That felt very, very good. It felt honestly the best. It's the best representation of a tabletop game that I've ever played. And that's saying a lot because I've played a ton of CRPGs over the years. And it's good. It just felt good. The combat was good. Quick commercial break, everyone, to give a shout out to our first official guild officer, Bubbalonia, as well as all of the guild champions, and of course, all of the members who help keep me on the air full time. To join as a member, simply click that join button below and pick your tier, but you can also support with SuperChats on any live stream or premiere, or SuperThanks on any upload or YouTube short. Don't forget the Discord. Let's get back to the video. The composition, I have yet to do my video on the music composition, but the person who composed the music for this game deserves to win every award under the sun for music composition. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I'll tell you what, my favorite boss fight of the game, and there's going to be another video about my favorite boss fights in total, but also one in particular stands out. The fight with Renfail in the House of Hope, which is an optional encounter. And when they start singing, and it's Hope singing on one side and Renfail singing on the other, down with the claw, I was like sitting there during the live stream like freaking out about that moment, because the combination of epic fight with music and everything that you had done to get there, and what an asshole Renfail is the whole time, and just how good it felt to finally take vengeance against him. That was one of the coolest moments of the whole game for me. It stands out. I think even now, a couple days after finishing the game, I think the Renfail fight in particular stands out as like my favorite moment of the whole game, out of many moments. So great storyline. The great writing, great music, great combat, a faithful representation of tabletop, but the voice acting and motion capture for this game, I think, is what transported it for me, because I've played a lot of good CRPGs, Dragon Age Origins, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, Deadfire in particular, I absolutely love. By the way, the video I just did the other day about how Josh Sawyer saying if he got Baldur's Gate 3's budget, he would happily make Pillars of Eternity 3, and I'm like, please do so. And I would love Larian to pick up the license for Icewind Dale 3. That would be awesome. Anyway, but I've played a lot of good CRPGs, but the one thing they've always been lacking is epic cinematic cutscenes. And Baldur's Gate 3 delivered that in spades. Larian built a cinematic mocap studio from the ground up. And if I'm not mistaken, I was seeing Asterian's actor talk about how they did 4 years of motion capture and voice acting for their parts in this game, the main characters. And there were hundreds of other people who contributed to motion capture and voice acting overall. But the actors behind the main characters, the origin characters, deserve to win every fucking award that's out there for not just voice acting, but also acting in general in a video game, because they did it all. They did all the mocap, they did all the facials, they did everything. It wasn't just them in a recording booth doing voiceovers. That transformed this game for me from being just another CRPG to being a truly cinematic masterpiece. And I've got another video I'm coming out talking about how I think Baldur's Gate 3, along with Cyberpunk 2077, after the 2.0 update and the Phantom Liberty, we're getting to a point now where in the last, there's other games that fit into this category, but I want to focus on this one for now, being a game that really showcases how games are more than just games, or they can be more than just games. A game can be much more than just a piece of entertainment. It can be a piece of art, a masterpiece piece of art. I mean, yeah, you've got great games like Spider-Man 2 and God of War and Jedi Survivor, and games that you can blow through in 50 hours that are great games that are really fun, highly entertaining, great cinematics, great everything, but it's over in 40, 50 hours, and you're kind of left going, okay, cool, move on to the next one. Whereas Baldur's Gate 3 is something that you can consume over and over and over and over because all of the replayability. And I think that speaks to this being a piece of art more than just a video game. And that's a difficult thing to achieve. So all of these created together, coming together to create this perfect storm of a game that I think did take the world by storm, because I believe they said when it came out that they were expecting, if they had 100,000 concurrents, they were going to be happy, and then they ended up blowing past that and getting like 800,000 plus concurrents on Steam alone. And then there's also the GOG and the PlayStation 5, and then it's coming out on the Xbox, and I don't know if they're ever going to release how many units the game has sold in total, but holy crap, it's a lot, and justifiably so. Larian Studios has gone from, humble beginnings, building their own world and their own franchises up, and then finally getting the chance to take a bite of a big apple with a huge license like this and just knocking it out of the park. This was a home run in every sense of the word. Are there bugs? Even now, yes, there are still some quirks. There are still some performance issues, I know, on PS5 as well as etc. But I don't think those take away from what was accomplished here. And the other thing I think that a lot of people don't take into consideration, which they probably should, is how passionate the team was that worked on this. If you didn't watch the panels from hell during early access, the passion that Sven has and the rest of the team, dressing up in armor and the bands and the music and the cosplay and everything else, like, they went above and beyond in terms of showing people their passion for this world and this franchise and Forgotten Realms in general. And that's the other thing here, is that they did, which I briefly mentioned earlier in the video, it's like the best representation of tabletop I've ever seen, but they did 5th edition justice. 5th edition is not my favorite edition of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's amazing what they did with this, and it's amazing where they made a game that, even though I will never partake in these things, I will never multi-class a character, I will never respec a character, I play the characters out of the box, how they're meant to be played. Shadowheart is a cleric. I just left her as she was. Gale is a wizard, left him as he was. Lae'zel was a warrior, left her as she was. And yeah, there's subclasses you can take along the way, but that doesn't change who their core class is. But I didn't hire hirelings. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just played the game all the way through, but they provided people with those options, saying, you want to multi-class your character. Guess what? You can multi-class every 12 levels. That's not like by the books traditionally. And they did a lot of things here that were sort of it's like riffing on 5th edition, and you can't take everything that's on paper and make it work in a video game, and I think they did a very good job at pulling it off. So for me personally, definitely my game of the year, probably my game of the decade. We still have a few years ahead of us to see what else is coming out. But considering I already know that I'm going to be doing at least 4 or 5 playthroughs of this game, which will match what I've done for Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, Dragon Age Origins, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Icewind Dale 1 and 2. These are all games that I've played 4 or 5. In the case of Baldur's Gate 2, I've done like, I don't know, a lot. 20, maybe 15, 20, somewhere in there. I still play it. Like I played it last year. It's like, and I'll probably still play it again in another couple of years. They've created a game that I want to continue playing for a long time to come, and that's a masterpiece in my mind. So Larian Studios and all the people who made this come together, and all the actors and the talent who doing music and art and everything else, thank you so much for creating something that was so much of a joy to play through, and something that I can't wait to play through again and again and again. And to the rest of you, if you have played it, love to hear your thoughts below. If you haven't played it, what are you waiting for? Go pick it up now. Get on it. It's a great game. You're gonna have a lot of fun. I'm approaching 400 videos in my Baldur's Gate 3 playlist, which just goes to show you how amazing this game was, because I don't think I've done that with any other game apart from maybe like Lord of the Rings Online and Star Wars: The Old Republic, which are MMOs that I've played since they launched. So I've got a decade plus in those games, and in a short window of time, like 3 years, I've done that much content for Baldur's Gate 3. That should say something to you. Anyway, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Don't go anywhere, because we got more Baldur's Gate 3 coming your way, along with other stuff. We're doing tons of other games. We do the Mondays in Middle-earth podcast, the Decoding Dune podcast. We do TV show reviews, film reviews, a bunch of other stuff, cooking. I got a Homestead channel with my wife. There's a Discord. Links are down below. And, of course, all the member videos for those of you who support the channel and keep me on the air full time. Thanks so much, and I'll see everybody in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Happy gaming.